What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. We are back here today to discuss all things AEW Revolution, which is set to air this Sunday, March 3rd, 2024, from Greensboro Coliseum in good old North Carolina. I was low-key, guys. I was trying to go. Back when they first announced the location, I was like, man, that's not far from where I'm originally from. So I was maybe trying to take a little road trip, but things didn't work out, and grand scheme of things actually worked out best, to be honest, because I actually ended up getting a different position at my full time. Um, so with that being said, I bring that up because the review for the Revolution pay per view, hopefully, I'm definitely gonna try to get it out as soon as possible. But I will be traveling on Sunday actually to Cleveland, Ohio. So if any of you are out there in Cleveland, what's up? But I hopefully I'll be able to watch a pay per view live and then get a review in pretty timely. Because I definitely want to see it. And it's crazy because I was never the biggest Sting fan growing up. I always thought he was cool, but he was never like my guy per se. But now that he's retiring, I'm feeling kind of nostalgic, you know. So my goal is to bring some of my equipment with me. As much as possible and still pack light. And try to of course watch the pay-per-view first and then get a review show out. So we'll see what that looks like, TBD on that. But thank you guys so much for checking out the prediction show here today. Like I said, I'm pretty excited. Well, I take that back. I'm looking forward to the pay-per-view, right? AEW, say what you want about them, but they always come through and they always deliver. Siri just thought I was talking to her. Um, they always come through for the pay-per-views, right? The build can be kind of hit or miss or kind of lacking, but the pay-per-views always deliver, which is a good thing, right? You know, if you're asking people obviously to plop down 50, $60, whatever it is, you want to make sure they get what they're paying for, right? And then some. That's why Tony Khan's mindset was always more with pay-per-views. And in a lot of ways you respect that, right? But for me, it's the build up to it. It's the match itself, you know, is going to be great, but I've always been, and if you guys have listened to me before, it's nothing new. I've always been and probably always will be a story person, especially a story first person, I should say. Especially nowadays, because we're blessed with the fact that we have so many talented wrestlers out there. So pretty much any promotion you watch, you know, the in ring action is going to be pretty tight. But the story for me is what really engages me and keeps me going. So with all that being said, that's kind of why I'm not as excited for the pay-per-view as a whole, but definitely the hook. And to be fair, you know, the hook and the whole driving force from jump with this pay-per-view has always been that it's Sting's final match. And that's why I want to say, to be fair, you know, the main focus has been on Sting, and rightfully so. You know what I mean? It's not often you get an icon, not to steal one of the catchphrases, of this magnitude, retiring and going out on top regardless if he wins or loses. Obviously, he's not a heavyweight champion or anything like that, but on top in the sense of he was one of the few, if you really think about it, legends out there who was still able to perform and go. At his age, you know what I mean? And I'm not one of those people who's like an ageist or anything like that. Like, oh, once you hit 40, like it's all downhill from there. Yeah, obviously physically, like your body can do certain things at certain ages better than other ages, right? That's just normal with anyone. But the fact that health wise he has still been able to go out there and do some of the craziest shit that we've seen, like some of the shit that he never even was known for, jumping off of balconies and stuff and through tables and off ladders and shit. It's just crazy to see what he's done in AEW, and that'll always be one of the things that I'll forever give props to Tony Khan on. He has a way and has from jump, just has a way of respecting the legends and not using them or making fun of them as we've seen Vince and WWE Creative do in the past. And again, to be fair, WWE is changing things under the new regime, but for years and decades, the legend would be brought back just to be made fun of or to look foolish, you know? And even when they brought Sting into WWE, I I think I speak for the majority of fans. If you watched it as it was going down, it was not the best run and not what any of us expected. And at that time, I don't really know what I expected, but I definitely didn't expect them to bring him in and then have him lose at WrestleMania 31 to Triple H. And it's it's just so crazy to think back where we were, guys, and where we are now. Which is why I'm so thankful for the wrestling business and how it's changed over the past, I would say, probably 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years. And again, AEW has a lot to do with that. So got to give props where it's owed, right? But I say all that to kind of set the stage for some of the matches. Because again, if we're just looking at the matches on paper, for the Revolution card, a lot of them are going to be fantastic matches, right? Um, 4 stars, 5 stars, however you grade it, on your scale. But to me, some of the stories are lacking, or some of the stories were kind of hit or miss, um, or just could have been more in my opinion. So with all that being said, and we'll definitely obviously be getting back to the whole Sting tirade and focal point of everything once we get to the main event. But the first match that we have on the list here is the tag team match, FTR facing off against Blackpool Combat Club, and of course those two members being Claudio Castagnoli and John Moxley. Um, and this is exactly why I was kind of on that little soapbox there for the story and maybe the lack thereof. This one isn't necessarily a lack thereof story or anything like that. It's just, man, like I just, for me, like the Blackpool Combat Club are people that the fans want to cheer, right? So it's like, why are we pushing back against that? And we'll kind of reference that again when we talk about Brian Danielson's match in a little bit too. Like, why not? Why are we fighting against it? Like I don't. That part kind of gets me. Like John Moxley's cool. John Moxley is authentic. He's one of those guys that doesn't give a fuck, and you like him for it. But he's always like he was our guy. Like when AEW was starting. Yes, Chris Jericho had a big hand in things, but John Moxley was that dude. You know what I mean? Like Mox was that guy that he just kind of stone cold, and I think I've even said it in the past too, kind of stone cold-esque, right? Like, didn't give a fuck, came in there, wanted to beat someone's ass, and then leaves. You know what I mean? Um, so something's just different about Mox and I mean Claudio's Claudio, Claudio I think is fine, but I think for me, just the Moxley and Danielson of it all and just the direction, for me is the most perplexing part. So again, I say that because for me, it kind of plays into the story aspect of this match. I'm because I feel conflicted, you know what I mean? And FTR, I love FTR, obviously, and I guess I kind of get why BCC is leaning more towards the heel, I guess you would say. But I don't know, like I think that long term they could be getting more out of BCC, and maybe they will, maybe they'll switch it up after this, but I don't know. To me it just seems kind of convoluted when it doesn't really need to be. But with that being said, I think that FTR needs the win here more so than BCC at this point. And not needs it necessarily as in the grand scheme of things, but especially if they're going to continue this, FTR definitely needs to get the W here. But I think you want to set up FTR, and I think this is going to be one of those shows where my predictions may vary drastically from other shows or other people's opinions. But I'm going to jump out on the limb for a couple of these matches here and kind of go a different direction. So that's why I say with this one you need FTR to win, because that sets them up for future stories, which we'll get into a little bit later. But the next star, or the kind of gave it away there. The next match that we have on the card here is the now All Star Scramble match, featuring Brian Cage, Chris Jericho, Hook, Lance Archer, Powerhouse Hobbs, Wardlow, and two other entrants to be determined. I just, when I shake my head at the Lance Archer part, because they could have done so much more with him from jump. Like this dude has been around, I'm pretty sure since the beginning of AEW, if not since maybe not from the exact beginning, because I think he was still possibly in New Japan at some point too, or maybe I, regardless, he's been there for a while, right? And I think they just dust him off whenever they need a big guy to insert somewhere, and then he goes in and he loses, and then he's back to doing whatever else, and not in AEW. And to me, it's a real L and a real loss. I think, not saying he would have been like the next heavyweight champion or anything like that, or one of their champions, heavyweight champions, but man, like I think they could have gotten a decent run out of him. Um, so shame on them, and not Lance Archer, of course, but shame, man. And at this point, I don't even know if it's something that you can fix going forward. So yeah, it's just a shame. Just a shame on that one. But I think for this one too, the main thing for me is the two other entrants that are going to be added, right? Now, and I think this one also does determine the winner of this match gets a future championship match. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the lineup that I have here doesn't necessarily mention that, but I could be mistaken. I'm pretty certain that's the case, which obviously plays into that factor as well. But then again, maybe even not. You know, like AEW, Tony Khan is known to, I don't want to say have random championship matches, contender wise, but to throw someone out there, for instance, Smojo and Hook, right? Hook is credible. Hook is a star in the making. Hook is well on his way, right? But I don't think any of us would have pegged that he would have been facing off against Samoa Joe for the championship match in 2024, right? But I think that's a good example, you know. And again, I'm not gonna sit here and go down that route necessarily where whether he should or shouldn't have. But I say that because, for instance, if you do have a powerhouse Hobbs or a Brian Cage win this, you know, I wouldn't be completely shocked. Not saying that they're going to win because the winner of this match doesn't guarantee that if and when they do face off against Samoa Joe or whoever the champion may be at the time, for their championship match that they're going to win, right? It could just be an opportunity to have them face against the championship, against the champion rather, have a good showcasing, make a very valid argument for a future rematch, and then kind of go from there. You know what I mean? So, but those are my again the two main things there. Like I mentioned, are the two surprise entrants. And again, I guess I could look it up here and not be lazy. But if the scramble match will be for the championship match itself, and with Chris Jericho being added in there, I think that's just maybe to get him on the card, just add some more star power, all star. Um, but part of me is like, are they going to give it to him? Because that could be a good match, maybe. But I just don't see it right now. I don't see Jericho winning. But if I had to pick someone out of the lineup that we have here, out of the six, I'd honestly go Wardlow. I would go Wardlow. I think that Wardlow needs the win, probably more so than anyone else, unless again TBD on the other two entrants. But I think, especially with the promo that he cut, what was it last week before, that fiery promo, and just him being angry. I think you want to have a good showcase and have something showing that he backed it up. You know what I mean? Like, don't go out there and say all this shit, and then the next opportunity you have, you fail. You know what I mean? So I think that I think my pick, and that's probably not a surprising pick. I think I'm gonna go Wardlow. And again, if they add someone else in later, with one of those two surprise entrants, that could alter things. But right now, I'd put down Wardlow. And again, too, I think that would be a good match. I think Wardlow versus Joe would be a good match. But again, I don't see Wardlow winning. I don't see Wardlow beating Joe if he does win, or if depending on when he cashes it in. If Joe keeps the title until a returning Adam Cole comes back, loses to Adam Cole, and then we have that drama there, within the United Kingdom, or the Undisputed Kingdom rather, United Kingdom. Um, Whether Wardlow is going to really just hand over a championship, or relinquish rather the championship match that he won, or if he's going to go after Cole. So I think that's an interesting pick, and you can go a few different routes with that. But yeah, I just I don't really know what other option you would go. I'm going to look it up really quick, guys. So bear with me. Scramble Revolution. But because I'm really now really intrigued to. I wish I had it written down. Or I wish that one article had it written down there. The final two participants will be determined. Blah blah blah. We got that. Oh well, there we go. That answers the question there. Interesting. Okay, so I missed that little key point there, but and obviously I knew it was replacing the Meat Madness, which I was so looking forward to. Not really. The final two participants, they've been revealed. I'm not gonna mention it here because I'm not really a spoiler person. And I just found out here, which it's not really that big of a deal. I wouldn't call them all stars though, no offense. So that's kind of disappointing. um But man, like I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm just gonna not go off on that little rant here right now. I'll spare you guys. Um, but yeah, so I mean, Tony Khan's tweet, bro. I'm just gonna read this tweet that he had put out on February 20th, whatever day that was. He said with multiple wrestlers. Oh, and Miro responded, so maybe I will. He said with multiple wrestlers slated for AEW Revolution's Meat Madness match out injured plus or shelled by AEW docs, I'm temporarily freezing the bout until they're clear. Meat Madness is on ice. I don't know why that just tickles me. He goes on and says Sunday's PPV will feature an all-star scramble match. See you on AEW Dynamite, of course. Meat Madness is on ice. I haven't been on Twitter much this week. And it just locked me out randomly too. So I don't know. I just got back in later or earlier today rather, but I don't know. But Meat Madness is on ice. I just love that phrase for whatever reason. I think Meat Madness is fucking dumb. You know what I mean? Like it's not, and I say that, and I will say that I know I'm probably not the targeted audience for that concept, so it's not meant for me. Not even probably meant to be anything serious, obviously. But yeah, not here for the Meat Madness, guys. Anyway, moving back on. And I did reference Miro, so Miro did quote tweet that, and I'll read to you guys what Miro said. I read it earlier. I didn't think I'd be referencing it. But Miro cracks me the fuck up, guys. But Miro responded and quote treated Tony Khan's tweet there regarding the wrestlers being injured, da da da. I just want a picture. I don't need all the YouTube links. This is why I fucking hate technology sometimes, guys. But all right, here we go. I very easily could have just gone to Twitter, which is what I'll probably do. But I was resisting that because I figured he probably would have deleted it by now. But I'm sure I just want to get the right verbiage. Here we go. Thank you, someone. Thank you, Reddit. Fucking always count on Reddit. um, I'm not gonna mention the account that actually. Okay. So backing up to be 100% accurate, which should be. It was not. Miro did not quote tweet the tweet from Tony Khan himself. He quote tweeted a account that I am not going to mention here because I mute them and I think that they're just there for clicks. And it's actually very surprising to me how much engagement they get. Because they steal. It's one of those accounts that, and I think someone else even I think maybe. I think someone else called them out earlier, and shout out to them if that was the account that they called out. It was Seahawk. Shout out Seahawk too. He's dope. I always love. I follow him. I love his views, his opinions on things, how he doesn't give a fuck. So shout out to him. But the account in reference had stated that Tony Khan on the Revolution media call confirms that Miro and Keith Lee were supposed to be in Meat Madness before the match was canceled as they're both unavailable at this time. Miro then went on to quote tweet that and said, "I've been injured since September and I got medical attention in January. Sorry, he was aware. He was not aware of it." um, I'll just say I love Miro. My dude don't give a fuck. um, and yeah, and I mean, whatever. It just cracks me up. And the whole Keith Lee thing, to be fair too, like Keith Lee's been injured for a while because Keith Lee, if you think back, like that was the whole reason we didn't get the Swerve and Keith Lee match at what was it, World's End. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. But anywho, moving on back to the actual prediction and the card here. For that, like I said, just to move on from this match, which I didn't expect to go down a rabbit hole and spend so much time on. Again, my pick, and now especially seeing the other two entrants, stays with Wardlow. Moving on to the match of the night, which I am not going out on a limb here. I already know this is going to steal the show. Will Ospreay versus Konosuke Takeshita. I can't say anything to do this match justice, right? For this, that's why I'm so hoping I can get everything set up and be able to watch the show. This is just gonna be a bonkers match. This is gonna be next level. This is a perfect pairing for Will Ospreay's official debut match as an AEW member, as an AEW full time wrestler. Right? Obviously, he's been in AEW and I had AEW matches in the past, but this is his breakout moment, right? Um, Maybe that's overstating it, but this is his official debut as a full time wrestler for AEW. So I think this is a perfect pairing. I think this is gonna hopefully the way I see it, this is gonna set up Will Ospreay to be a top babyface for them. Because the way I see it, which I don't think is gonna be probably shocking to anyone, so this isn't one of those matches where I'm going on a limb on. I think this is pretty much going to be one of those matches where they kick ass for a good 15, 20 minutes. And then depending on the time limit, normally they give them like 30 minutes or an hour, I think, for singles matches, or maybe the hour is just the championship matches. But regardless, I think it's going to go the majority of the time allotted for them. And then I think we're going to have a situation where the Don Callis family screws Will or tries to help Takeshita win more so than Osprey, and then they end up turning on Will, right? And then I think that sets up Will to continue the feud against the Callis family, right? And maybe even have a rematch with Takeshita going forward. But I think this is just going to be obviously a banger of a match, and I think this is going to be a good way to accomplish a few things, and knock out a few birds with one stone with this. Have Will come out and have a kick-ass match, which he can do with anyone, right? Like he doesn't need Takeshita, but this is just a match to amplify that, right? And to amplify his skills and what he brings. And if you are newer to Will Ospreay, or this is the first match you've seen of him for whatever reason, like if you're a newer AEW fan and this is the debut and the first time you're ever seeing Will Ospreay, I think this is a phenomenal showcase for him and a showcase match for him. But story wise, I think this is also going to set up and confirm that Will is a good guy, right? And I think that having him feud and go against Don Callis, especially on the mic, will just amplify Will Ospreay's strengths, and maybe I'm not even saying the dude has weaknesses, but to be honest, I haven't seen or heard too many promos from him like in ring wise. So I think like in TV format too, like weekly television, I think is completely different. So in that aspect is what I mean. Just having a good dance partner on the mic, for that, for lack of better words. Um, but my official pick for that one is again Will Ospreay is taking the W. But moving on, this is one of the matches that I was referring to earlier. That, and I don't even know if it's fair because this one is relying on a lot of the backstory and the story that we've had periodically throughout AEW's history and then prior to AEW. And that, of course, being Eddie Kingston facing off against Bryan Danielson. And if Danielson loses, he has to shake Kingston's hand. And of course, it is for the Continental Crown Championship as well. Just something's missing. And I think what I was saying earlier about the fan support, everyone wants to cheer Brian. You know what I mean? Like this could be one of those matches where it's okay to have two good guys facing off against each other. But I get what they're trying to do here, and I get the story, and as I contradictory to what I just said. But this one, it was one of those I feel like I'm just missing something. And it could be me. I could be way off, or it could be something that I missed myself. So full awareness on that. But my prediction here with this one is that Kingston retains. I don't think Bryan Danielson needs to win it. I think he's still on his kind of his like own little retirement tour for full time status at least. But again, I think this is going to be a really solid match. I don't know, and I don't really know what we do with Eddie Kingston going forward either. So we'll see with that one. We'll see. This one I'm very much looking forward to as well because of the story. So the exact opposite, and this is a singles match for the AEW TNT Championship. Your champion Christian Cage, who has just been fucking fantastic, facing off against Daniel Garcia, who I think is really coming into his own as well. And I think this is going to be a solid year for him. And this one I was actually back and forth on. I was, for this, I think part of me is in the camp of Christian Cage doesn't need the TNT championship, right? He can continue to go on his patriarchy journey and just use that as the selling point. And I think he can be one of those guys who in the back just walks up, like if someone just like a younger talent, like a Daniel Garcia, for instance. If Daniel Garcia just finishes up an interview with Renee or whatever, I can see Christian walking up and just being that asshole who interjects himself in other people's business, right? And it doesn't need to be for a title. But on the flip side, I love that he's a champion. And I love that he has that to brag about. I love that he has that to just hold on his shoulder. I think it makes him look like $1,000,000. I think it really does amplify his character. And I think he's on a hot streak still. So part of me is like, don't ruin a good thing. But I say that because in the back of my head, I still have Copeland in the rear, right? In the rear view mirror. So, and for that, I don't think that obviously that doesn't need a championship. And to me, the big deal with that and the big question is when is I almost called him Edge. When is Adam Copeland going to return, right? And how soon? Um so because I think honestly that plays a big factor in it. I really want to say Daniel Garcia wins, but part of me is still leaning towards Christian Cage. So I don't know. Because I really think that with all the other 50 titles that they have, that you can really have Daniel take the loss here and have maybe I don't just blank on his name. Oh my gosh. I am blanking on the kid's name. But that's gonna drive me nuts. Oh my gosh, guys, it is going to drive Nick Wayne. I didn't even have to search for it. Nick Wayne. Oh my gosh, it was driving me fucking nuts. But Nick Wayne, you can have Nick Wayne interfere here, right? And I think you can play off of that and have Nick Wayne and Daniel Garcia run it back again and have like a little mini feud there. And then maybe even have referencing the titles, maybe have Garcia kind of go on a winning streak between now and the next pay-per-view, which I believe is Double or Nothing. And then have him face off against the international champion. I almost said intercontinental. The international champion at Double or Nothing. So I think that's the run I'm probably going to go here. I really want Daniel to win. I really want an upset victory here, and I'm still with this one. I'll be good if I'm wrong, right? Um, but I think officially I'm going to choose Christian Cage, but I could see Daniel Garcia winning and getting kind of like an upset victory here and really starting something special. Um, but I just don't see it. I think that you can still have Garcia take another L here, and like I said, run it back with McWayne, kind of go back and forth with that. Not wins and loss wise, but just kind of dabble with that for a little while, and then set up a winning streak towards Double or Nothing. So I think that's what I'm going to stick with and go with Christian Cage here for that match. But moving on here, the next match we have is for the AEW Women's World Championship. We have Timeless Tony Storm facing off against Deonna Purrazzo. Um, I again, guys, like so to start, I'm in the camp, and this is an unpopular decision or side rather. I think Tony Storm is good with the championship. I think that does she need it? No. But again, I think that with the women's division where it was when she first got it and where it's still at currently, before of course the arrival of Mercedes Moné in a couple weeks, I think that she needed it, and I think I think the division needed it. I'd rather probably more so than maybe she did. But I think the division needed something. It needed a stable holder and a stable champion, right? And of course, looking at her character, she's far from stable, right? But I mean, in the sense that she's fantastic in the ring. I think she's one of the best women's wrestlers in ring wise that they have. I think she added credibility to the title because she brought in more notoriety and more attention, is what is the main thing, more attention. I don't know. Let's say someone else is the champion, and let's say they switch the titles here and put it on Deanna. I don't have confidence that she's gonna get the TV time, whereas a Tony Storm does because she's entertaining and she has that character, you know. And to be fair, I love Deonna Purrazzo. I think she's fucking fantastic, and I think she should be the champion. But character wise, in my opinion, and where I kind of view where AEW looks at where they're going to allow women to have TV time and who's going to get it. I think they're going to stick with Tony Storm for a little bit longer until you have Mercedes when it come in. And I did think about it earlier. I was like, I could see also them putting it on Deanna Prazo here because of the fact that Deanna is so good, and that would be a great match for Mercedes to have coming in and a good starting point to have her square up against Deanna Prazo to be her first match. I just think that would be a kick-ass match. But in the same token, too, I think we all forget how good Tony Storm is in the ring. So I think that would be a good match too, right? And I think that the Deanna Mercedes match is one that you may want to save for a Double or Nothing. Um, so I think that's what I'm going to go with. I think that, and maybe this isn't even a shocking choice here, I think that Tony Storm does retain the title. But again, this is not as much as the prior match, but I think this is another one of those matches where I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they put it on Perazzo. But I think with the amount of time that Tony Storm has had it at this point, and with the fact that you have Mercedes coming in so soon, I think you can kind of hold off, and you don't want the title to be flip flopped back and forth. And I don't think that you want Deanna to lose right away to Mercedes when she comes in either. So I think in a way this is going to be protecting Perazzo and Tony Storm for that matter, and setting up a nice little entry point for Mercedes Renee as well. Excuse me, guys. The next matchup we have here is the singles match for the AEW International Championship. With this one, I wanted to like the Undisputed Kingdom so much, but I'm just kind of over it at this point. I think that it had real potential at a couple early points, and it just took a sharp turn. So with that being said, I'm not really going to spend too much time here. I think if the stable themselves were hotter, it would be a no-brainer that Roderick would win. And again, I could be completely wrong here, and missing something. And I think I am probably wrong, but I think Orange Cassidy keeps it. As I say that, I do think that Tony Khan still loves the Undisputed Kingdom and wants to keep that going and have something holding them together. I don't know. I'm kind of back and forth on this one, to be honest with you, the more I sit here and thinking about it. But I don't know. I think and it should go without saying this is gonna be a great match. Because something Tony Khan loves Orange Cassidy, and I just like what I was saying earlier, and maybe you can have a Daniel Garcia face off against a Roderick Strong, but I just have, and I guess that would make more sense. All right, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go. Roderick Strong wins and defeats Orange Cassidy for the international championship. That could be crazy. I could be crazy for thinking that Orange Cassidy is gonna lose, or that he's not gonna lose. I don't know. I don't know why this one is so perplexing to me. So fuck it. I'm just gonna go Roderick wins and to make Adam Cole and the Undisputed Kingdom more relevant and just have a little bit more credibility. So that's what I'm gonna go with, and to give Orange Cassidy some time off too, because Homeboy needs it. Now we are moving on to the final two matches here. To be honest with you, part of me thinks that they're going to go with Sting's retirement match being the main event of the show. So with that being said, I'm going to go, and I think this is one of the rare occasions that AEW does this. But for that being said, I'm going to go with the AEW World Championship match up next. This one I think is pretty cut and dry for me too. I think it's set up as a three-way match for a reason. I think this is going to be a really really good match. But I think Joe wins. I think Joe retains here. I think Joe retains so you can have that Wardlow match, right? So you can have the not a rematch, but a one-on-one match with Swerve. My early prediction facing off against Joe at Double or Nothing. And I think that's where Swerve is going to win the championship. I think he's going to win the championship there, take it into Wembley at All In, and kind of go from there. But yeah, I think Joe, I don't think that the time is right to take it off of Joe right now. I think it's going to be one of those situations where Swerve and Hangman are just killing each other and they're both laid out and then Joe slides in for the win. Or even a situation where Joe chokes out Hangman, you know? But I don't see I don't think you want to put the championship on Swerve for his first victory in that regard and his first championship win and how monumental of a win that's going to be for so many reasons. I don't think you want to do that in a three-way in this type of setting. I think you want to do it where the focal point is more on him. And I don't think it's going to be one of those situations where he kind of burns out between now and Double or Nothing. I think it's just gonna. I think it's probably gonna do the opposite. I think it's just gonna continue to gain more and more momentum and more popularity. So that's my prediction with that. I think we're gonna go Joe retaining here, but I think it's gonna be a brutal, a brutal, hard hitting match, especially with it being no rules, with it being a three-way, or no disqualification rather. I think it's gonna be fucking crazy. And this is where I think I'm gonna go rogue and go opposite of a lot of people. And of course, the final match we have is the match of the evening for everyone. It's the tornado tag, which obviously you need to be a tornado tag and it'd be dumb if you didn't. For the AEW World Tag Team Championship, your defending champions, Darby Allin and the retiring Sting, facing off against those assholes, the AEW EVPs, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson. Um, I'm in the camp where I'm pretty entertained. And even just looking at the graphic here of Matthew and Nicholas, just fucking obnoxious. And this one in particular is one of them with their mustaches and their suits, and it's just great. And when I was thinking of who I believe is gonna win, I think what Sting wants is gonna play a huge factor into this, right? Because if all the reports that these are the opponents that Sting wanted to go against, I think that shows the power that Tony Khan has given to Sting for his final farewell. And I think rightfully so, right? I'm not saying that in any negative way. My dog is repositioning her bed. But with that being said, I don't think Sting is that guy who needs to win going out. You know what I mean? I don't think Sting is gonna be the guy who's like, "Oh, I have to like put me over" type thing. I think at the end of the day, it's Tony Khan's call, and if Tony is just adamant that he's not gonna do that to Sting and he's not gonna have him lose on the way out, I think that he will. But I just, man, like I feel like there's money in having the Jacksons. I don't know why I just call them the Jacksons. um, the Young Bucks. Um, But I don't think I think there's more money, I'll say rather, in having them win than having them lose. And yeah, and that's why when I was thinking earlier, I was like, their characters, like they can easily bounce back, right? They're kind of smarmy, like they're just those icky guys, right? And those icky EVPs who are just starting to throw their weight around and do whatever they want. So they could very easily talk their way into another title match or even put the titles on themselves, right? What greater dick move if you want to have Sting win and retire the championships and then supposedly set up a tag team tournament, but then you have Matthew and Nicholas come out and just crown themselves champion, right? Tag team champions. So I think you could do that and get a lot of heat. Um, I'm not that I'm in favor with it, but that's just something that I thought of. But I just and again, like even if I were putting money on my pick, I would be okay with losing it. But I'm sticking and I'm betting not the house, but I'm betting money on the Young Bucks winning here. I think it's one of those situations where you can very easily have them win, right? Win the tag team championships and then still have excuse me, Sting go out on a high note. I think you can have whether you want to have Ric Flair get involved or not, and I think we kind of nicely kind of put a bow on that this past week on Dynamite. So I'm not even banking on Flair getting involved. Obviously, I'm not going to be surprised, right? If he does, that was kind of like one of the main factor, and not the main factor, but one of the factors going into it. But with them addressing that on Wednesday, I kind of think that cleaned things up a bit, or maybe it's just a swerve, right? um, but I don't know. I just I think something's gonna happen in this match where the Young Bucks win, and there's something that happens afterwards where Sting still, whether it's just beating up Ric Flair, whether it is as simple as Ric Flair interferes or Ric Flair pulls Sting off on one of the brothers that he's trying to pin, prevents the 3 count. Matthew or Nicholas just like hits Sting with a chair in the head or some shit. Not that I'm advocating for it, or just something kind of drastic like that, and knock Sting out. And again, I don't even, I'm putting money on the Young Bucks winning here, but I don't know if you want to go as far as having them pin Sting. But I think fuck it. I'm I guess asking for destruction here on Twitter. I say fuck it. If you're gonna put money on, and if you're gonna put your decision as the Jacksons, I don't know if I'm gonna, if they should just go by that now, not the Young Bucks, but the Jacksons. If you're gonna have them win, I say fuck it, go all out, just create as much fire and chaos as you can, and have maybe Matthew pin Sting. Have Ric Flair, like I said, pull Sting off of Matthew or off of Nicholas, right? Have Sting be looking at Flair because Sting or Ric Flair again for the 140th millionth time. Ric Flair screws Sting on the way out. Have Matthew clock Sting over the head with the chair or in the back. But the only reason I say the head is because Sting, whenever he gets hit with the chair, is impervious to the chair, right? He feels no pain. Or whether it's another weapon or with its, I don't know, just does something drastic to Sting. And then he pins Sting and are the tag team champions. I just, part of me is like, fuck it. If you're gonna, like I said, if you're gonna go all out and have the Young Bucks win, I say create as much chaos as you can, because the fans that are going to be there are still going to love Sting and maybe even have more sympathy for him and more love for him on the way out. But man, like I don't know. And part of me, like, I don't even know if you want to call it fantasy booking or just trying to stir the pot and create madness, whatever that is in me. But the more likely route I see them going is having Sting Sting and Darby Allin retain, relinquish the championships or retire the championships rather, and then you have a tournament to crown new tag team champions. Or you go my other route where I said they still win, relinquish the championships, all that good stuff, and then Matthew and Nicholas just crown themselves as tag champs. Which again, I don't see them necessarily doing that because I think AEW still isn't gonna go that far with the craziness. But, and again, not even saying that I would advocate for them to crown themselves, but if you want to make them obnoxious and really play into their EVP role, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? And I was about to say, maybe you can have a rare on-screen appearance from Tony Khan, or have Tony Schiavone out there in the ring when they're trying to crown themselves champion, and Tony Khan or Tony Schiavone says, "Oh, I just got to work from Tony Khan." Like, you're not gonna something, you know what I mean? Like, even though that'd be kind of lame. I just think that there's something that you can do with either side, obviously, right? But I just think if you want to have full heat, you have the Young Bucks pin Sting. And even if they don't pin Sting, you can pin Darby. But I think, like I said, if you're gonna go for it, go for it. And then you can still have the feel good moment after that, right? Not saying Sting still can't stand up and collect himself, and then have the feel good moment right then. Have his sons come in the ring and the confetti and all that stuff. So I say, why not? Why not? And I think that sounds crazy. I think that sounds fucking crazy, but we'll see. As I said, I think I'm going out on a limb here, probably deviating from a lot of popular choices here, or maybe not. Maybe I just think I'm crazy, and maybe I'm actually sane. And we're all on the same page here. But I'd be interested to see what you guys think. Let me know. You can drop it in the comments here. You can hit me up on Twitter at @kickashpodcast_ or my personal Twitter at ASHMANNS. Also on TikTok, under the same Kickash Podcast, but I don't really post too much. I've started to get a little bit more better about it, but just kind of going with the flow here. And I was just never really a TikTok person. But I guess I have to be now. Not have to be, but it's a good little platform, and it's fun interacting with people on there too. So wherever you find me at, guys, or wherever you listen to the show, regardless, I appreciate you. I appreciate all the likes and the comments and just the engagement. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. Hopefully, like I said earlier, I will be able to get watch live with you guys and get a review show out pretty promptly and pretty timely. But until next time, thank you guys for checking out the show again, and I hope you have an awesome day. Stay safe.